talk about gratitude like it's the cherry on top after all the real work has been done. It's the thank you email, the quick good job, the pause before the holidays to say, team, what a year. Gratitude isn't the cherry on top. It's the substantive work that we often miss. Gratitude isn't soft, right? It's not the extra add-on at the end of a day or whatever. We might come out that way, but that's not that thing that we say, oh, thankfully we shared something like that. It's actually one of the most powerful stabilizers in leadership. When a leader practices gratitude consistently, it rewires how they see people, how they handle pressure, and how their teams perform under stress. And here's the paradox. Most leaders only think about gratitude when things are calm or when things have gone their way.
That's right.
But gratitude was built for chaos. It's not the bonus at the end, it's the ballast that keeps you steady when everything around you starts rocking.
Ooh, yeah. And what I love about the way you framed that is gratitude isn't just about being positive. And a lot of times we find leaders, Eric, who kind of look at some of these softer skills, these people skills, these emotional intelligence skills as like, oh, you're just skating over all of the hard stuff. You're only focusing on what's good. That's not gratitude at all. And I hope that you hear that come out in this episode. One thing that gratitude really helps us accomplish is it allows us to be present. It grounds us when we slow down long enough to notice what's working, who's contributing, and what's good. Even when things are hard, we start leading with a different energy. We start leading with composure instead of control or fear.
Love that. Gratitude is not a mood. I think that's often how we think of gratitude. Like something went well, we achieved something, we overcame something. Now I get to feel gratitude. Instead, think of it as a verb, an action, a discipline, a practice that has the ability to increase our leadership capacity.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So most leaders are running at a pace that doesn't allow space for gratitude. We're always scanning for the gaps, what's missing, the problems, because that's what leadership often rewards. At least that's what we think it rewards. But when that becomes our default lens, we start leading from a deficit. You see what's broken instead of what's working well or what's being built. This leads to a scarcity mindset when we need to be operating from an abundance mindset. And by abundance mindset, I mean like we have what we need. We have what it takes to be able to continue pushing through. And no, I'm not talking about toxic positivity, because I think that's where some people's minds go. Now you just want to avoid, and like you said, just kind of, glance over all the problems we're facing. Not at all. Not at all. But we're talking about the power of functioning from sober gratitude, right? Learning to hold what's not working, but what is working in each of our hands so that we don't become internally imbalanced. And a scarcity mindset has a cost, because you and I both know when we work with clients, more often than not, they're coming to us when things are in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're already overly fixated on the challenges they're facing. And what we find very often is that because they're overly fixated, their whole mindset goes there. Yep. Right? They start to develop this kind of negativity bias, which is synonymous with a scarcity mindset. When all we see are gaps, we train our teams even by our example to operate from fear instead of optimism or a hope in the future. We accidentally build cultures that are allergic to appreciation, where excellence gets normalized, right? Like that's just the standard. And if you do it, fine, but it's never celebrated.
Oh man, it's so true. And we see this often, especially as you said, when clients bring us in for that one-on-one experience, it's because oftentimes something's not working, something's amiss. And this concept is often present in those environments where leaders, we don't mean to do it. We just forget this concept sometimes. And what happens is, like, I was working with a team recently, they were hitting insane goals and they were doing it over and over again. And I asked the team, well, how do you celebrate these wins? And the response basically was, oh, we don't. We just move on to the next goal. And this is so common, especially among high achievers, that as soon as we get close to that goal line, as soon as we're about to be able to celebrate a win, we move the end zone. We move that finish line for us, which means as a team, we never get to experience the satisfaction of the win. We never get to celebrate together. And sometimes we talk about this as the treadmill of productivity, and it really leads our teams to a sense of futility and emptiness.
Let me position gratitude this way. What if we thought of it as the antidote to that kind of emptiness? And obviously we're going to unpack that more deeply here in just a moment. I think because gratitude recenters everyone back toward a sense of purpose. Why the work matters that we're doing, not just the work that we're actually producing. And it cultivates trust, right? Because when people feel seen, they stop wondering if they matter.
It's so good. And I often say this to my kids, right? We find what we're looking for. So as leaders, it's a great reminder to ask ourselves, what are we looking for? Are we looking for all the ways that things aren't working? Or are we looking for ways to celebrate our people, and in that sober way of honoring where we are and where we're going? Both can be true, right? Okay, so what do we do as leaders, Eric, to start to create a culture of gratitude and celebration if that's missing from our current contexts?
Yeah, well, I hope our listeners are hearing it by this point, that we're not trying to elevate gratitude and celebration over and against paying attention to what's not working, the real challenges that we're facing. It's more about learning to hold both together and to say, we talk about when it comes to self-awareness, we talk about the practice of honesty, right? Paying attention to both the gold and the dirt of what's going on in our lives and in our organizations, and humility about accepting and embracing this is our reality today. Some people might be familiar with Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, where he references the Stockdale paradox, right? Which if you're not familiar with that story, just Google it, Stockdale paradox, and read the story of this incredible war hero who was able to persist in a POW camp when so many other people gave up hope and passed away in that camp. He was able to persist and to sustain his internal perspective that allowed him to escape eventually and make it to safety. But a lot of it had to do with his ability to hold these two realities in tension. So at Empower Coaching, we talk a lot about emotional intelligence and trust. And I think gratitude sits right there at the intersection of these two. In our leadership operating system, which we've talked about so many times, right? Gratitude shows up in the others awareness practice, how we view the world. But let me say this, we also talk a lot about how we can't give to others what we don't first cultivate within ourselves.
Right.
This practice of gratitude is really something that we have to do internally for ourselves. And that's what gives us the greater confidence and skill to do this within our teams and our organization, right? So it's empathy and belief. It's about being able to see and appreciate life from somebody else's perspective. It's about believing in a better version of them and calling out that better version in them, rather than the opposite, which is focusing on where they're insufficient, where they're inadequate, where they dropped the ball, where they failed, right?
Yep.
When you intentionally recognize the good in others, not just performatively, but also at a personal level, you're creating a culture where others feel seen, heard, and valued.
That's right.
Empathy and belief calls out the best in one another and constantly reminds us that no matter what challenges may come, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Right? Because we often forget that leadership is a team sport. We win together and we lose together. And that's powerful because what we focus on expands.
Yeah.
Which is, you mentioned this earlier, focus on what's wrong and what's missing. That's what expands in our minds and in our culture. Focus on what's going well and the assets of your team, and that's what expands, right? And every great movie we've ever seen where the hero, whether it's an individual or a team of people, are, faced with their great challenge that they're having to overcome, not one of those motivational speeches was focused on the inadequacies, failures, and insufficiencies of that individual or team. It was always a calling out. We can do this. We have what it takes to overcome and to succeed. We're not saying to ignore what's not working, but rather to operate from an abundance perspective, a clear recognition of who we are, what we have, and what's possible over and against what's not.
That's right. And also another kind of nuance of this that I think people can miss sometimes is that gratitude also isn't about lowering our standards. It's not about lowering the bar so that, we can't appreciate what's happening. It actually raises the bar, because when people feel valued, when we feel seen as team members, when we sense that belief from our leaders, it calls us to achieve a higher standard, and we start to take ownership in the projects and the vision and the direction that we're going as a team. Everybody wants to protect what's healthy. We want to live up to that standard, that vision of ourselves that other people see in us. And that's what I think I've personally experienced that so many times when I have a leader or a mentor in my life that sees something in me that perhaps I haven't fully been able to see myself. Man, does that make me want to figure out how to unlock that thing?
100%.
How do I become that person that they see?
100%, right? So we all know this, like when our kids are small, negative reinforcement drives discouragement, frustration, and more failure. It might get a temporary result, but it drives long-term distrust, deflation. Positive reinforcement, right? And positive reinforcement is not avoiding or ignoring what's not working. It's just calling out what's good in the people around us. Actually drives greater trust. It drives hope. It drives optimism. It drives a greater motivation and desire to put in the work and effort to eventually overcome our challenges. Gratitude is one of those rare things that strengthens both the results that we're going to see and the relationships within our context.
Oh, true.
It builds psychological safety, which is people talk about like, hey, if I don't feel safe to struggle, to fail, to drop the ball at times, then what am I going to do? I'm always going to hide those failures. I'm not going to want to address them. I'm going to ignore them. I'm going to scoot them under the proverbial rug rather than the safety that we all need to fail forward.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other thing that I think gratitude and grateful leadership does is, as leaders, it helps us keep our people centered in the middle of the hustle. It reminds us of that kind of relationship between results and the outcome, the relationships, right? Relationships, results. That is what grateful leadership does for us. So let's talk about a couple of examples where we see this working well.
Yes. Well, let me practice some gratitude. I'm really grateful that early on in Candy's and my marriage, we've been married now 24 years. Early on in our marriage, we benefited from an older couple who took an interest in us and kind of became our marriage mentors. And they like really, really emphasized the importance of expressing gratitude, appreciation, and affirmation in every area of our lives. They said, because life is really hard and you are on a daily basis, you are going to be confronted by so many different challenges, failures. You're going to be exposed for your own inadequacies and insufficiencies, right? Because the reality is, to grow in any area, you first have to recognize, I don't know how to do it.
Yep.
Or I'm not as good as I want to be at that yet, which is a self-admittance of failure, insufficiency, inadequacy, right? And so they said, you have no chance at living a life in persevering through those growth opportunities if you cannot create a culture, an atmosphere where the air you're breathing is more fueled by gratitude, appreciation, and affirmation than by the opposite. Think about that. We've all been in an environment where, like, there's a bunch of dust in the air and you're like coughing and you go, man, the air is not clean here. Or, for all of our wonderful friends who live in Los Angeles, like they just live under this constant blanket of smog. I mean, you fly into the LAX and it's just like, is it a rainy day? Oh no, that's just the blanket of smog covering that valley, right? And it's just, and you kind of, and then there's these, alerts on the news, like the air quality today is terrible. Stay indoors, like put on your mask. But that's what we're talking about, right? Just from a metaphorical standpoint, like, what is the quality of the air that we are breathing? And what is the quality of the air our teams and even our organizations are breathing? Is it toxic or is it healthy? Right? So with that said, they challenged us early on to take on particular practices, rhythms, disciplines, what we call predictable patterns of gratitude and appreciation and affirmation. And so let me just name a few. First of all, when we work with organizations, very often in the coaching process, as we're learning the different tools of the leadership operating system, we'll pause between tools and take a whole cohort session to simply invite those participants to say, hey, take 30 seconds or a minute, and I want you to identify what's one thing you're celebrating about what's going on in your workplace at any level, doesn't matter what it is, one celebration. And then I also want you to identify what's one big challenge that you're tackling right now. And very often, the first time that we do this exercise, the participants are a little kind of like, I don't know. What do you mean celebrate? I thought we were here to solve problems. I thought we were here to talk about what's not working. Okay, so they celebrate and they'll share their celebrations, and you can feel literally the atmosphere, the temperature, the vibe of that space begin to change as they share celebrations. It's almost as if, oh my gosh, all we've been paying attention to is what's not working. We've not been paying attention to what is working. And therefore, we're losing sight of the fact that we do have a great team. We do have a great business system. We do have great sales team. We do have great customers and clients. Hey, we do actually have a great marketing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. Just even the recognition of like, oh my gosh, look at how far we've come. Celebration has that power. And so when we practice that over and over and over again through the coaching process, it eventually becomes one of their favorite exercises because they can feel the incredible change internally and even in the team as they take time to celebrate, appreciate, and affirm what's going on in their workplace. Another example is at a very early age, I've talked often on this podcast about the discipline of journaling. And oftentimes in my journaling process, I will take just a day to say, hey, what am I celebrating right now? Because my journal is quite understandably filled with a lot of the challenges that I'm trying to deal with and overcome, things that I'm trying to learn and grow through. But I just take, a day, a week or every other week to just say, all I'm going to do in this journaling session is just identify what are all the things that I need to express gratitude for. Right? In my personal life, in my professional life. And what that does is it fuels optimism, hope, and excitement about the future and gives me greater courage to tackle the challenges that I'm currently facing. Do you want to jump in and say something real quick? I got more examples. Let me just give a couple more. I thought you were going to play off of something I said. Okay, hold on.
Go.
Another discipline. And by the way, for our listeners, just take any one of these, throw them into your routine of life and watch how this transforms you and the people around you. So growing up as our kids were smaller, we would have a regular rhythm at dinner to say, hey, we're going to go around the table and share, hey, what's one celebration from your day? And even when our kids were small, nothing good happened. It was just a terrible day. Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to those things. But what's one thing you're celebrating? What's one thing you're grateful for from today? And again, just that discipline of keeping those things at the forefront of our minds, because very quickly they move to the back. And then one last one is my wife and I, a couple of years ago, went through some very intensive marriage counseling. We're kind of at a new crossroads, having to learn some new things.
Yeah.
to grow in our marriage. And one of the disciplines or rhythms that our counselor encouraged you was, hey, every single day, Monday through Friday, I want to encourage you to share a voice message with each other. Just when you have a minute in your day, a few minutes, and share a voice message with each other. And one of the things you're going to share is an affirmation of the other party.
I like
And
that.
I can tell you this, that doing that 4 or 5 days a week, and me hearing my wife share an affirmation of me, from the smallest, almost seemingly insignificant little things to more bigger, more robust affirmations. I can tell you this, it makes the navigation of the real challenges we're facing, the difficult conversations that we have to have, so much easier to tackle, because I am constantly being reminded my wife has a positive view of me. My
Mhm.
wife appreciates me. My wife values me, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I know she has expressed many a times that she experiences the same thing. Again, it goes back to, what is the quality of the air that we're breathing?
That's
And we
right.
need to make sure that that air is pure and oxygenated.
That's the word.
Yeah, if we want to function well.
That's right. I love those examples. And it, it just like practicing appreciation, celebration, gratitude is not something that we can ignore. And it's not, yes, we are talking about this because we are in the Thanksgiving season. So that's why I chose this topic. However, it is incredibly important and substantive for our leadership and our life
Yeah.
year round.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing I want to share thinking about this topic of grateful leadership is that it's actually something I think our Empower team does well. Both you and I have over our lives experienced varieties of different leadership, varieties of different team cultures, and we find ourselves on this Empower team fighting for common goals, and those, we're fighting for big things. Like,
Yeah.
we are in the midst of building big things for this company, and we set huge goals. And I was just talking about this the other day with some women in business who are asking me, like, how do you manage goal setting as an organization? And I was like, we literally set some audacious goals. Like, they're grounded in reality, but we set stretch goals, and then we very plainly review them and are like, did we meet these goals or not?
Yeah.
And that can be a super vulnerable space to be like, man, we didn't reach this goal. And I would say probably a quarter of the time, at least, our team doesn't fully reach the goals that we've set.
Right.
And to have to sit and have those conversations about, why didn't we reach these goals? What happened? Maybe the goal was too big, or we fell short in certain areas. What happened here? And we as a team are very committed to honest feedback coming into kind of those vulnerable spaces, because we believe in failing forward. One of our mantras, right, is try it and refine it. But that can leave our team very open to the realities of failure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Feeling like, man, I don't measure up. Man, I didn't make it. Man, there's another goal that I fell short on in some way. But what tempers that potential threat of feeling like failures, or owning our own failings, right? Holding those in tension, as you said, is that you are very good at practicing gratitude for our team. It's not an ignoring. We don't ignore where we fall short, but I regularly get voice messages from you to our team. Hey, Dawn, Aura, I just wanted to take a minute and say, I'm so excited about what we're doing. We just had that team call, and man, we are fighting for some big stuff. And I can't believe how far we've come this year. And I'm so excited about the work that you guys have been putting in. And it means so much to me that you guys are committed to this vision. That is a regular weekly rhythm that you have built in to our team. And what that does is it means that I, as a team member, can sustain falling short. I can sustain setting big goals that I might not reach because the gratitude tells me that failure doesn't define who I am.
Wow.
We as a team are bigger than where we fall short, because we are fighting for something big, and we're doing this together, and we can take moments to celebrate in the midst of honest feedback on, hey, the communication for that masterclass didn't go well. What happened? What do we need to do different next time? Absolutely. Yeah, let's look at that. But I don't walk away from those going, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible team member. I'm a horrible leader. I'm disqualified from whatever it is that we're fighting for. Because in the same breath, it's like, but also look at how far we've come and the big things that we are fighting for together.
You know what's interesting is I often, at this stage of my life, get told by people I spend time around. These are clients, people on the golf course, family, friends, whoever. Oh, Eric, you're just Mr. Positive. You're so optimistic. You're just, oh my gosh. And what most people don't know is that there was a time earlier in my life when nobody would have accused me of that. And they would have instead said, Mr. Negativity, Mr. Critical, because my natural wiring is critical. Like I'm constantly scanning the horizon for what the problems, what's not working, what are the trends, what do we need to change, what needs to be recalibrated. Like that's a natural part of my wiring. But what I learned early on is that without gratitude, appreciation, and affirmation, we're breathing toxic air.
Yeah.
And I experienced that at the modeling of other leaders and people in my life who showed that to me. I also remember at a young age, I thought, well, if I affirm this person in this area, then I'm condoning or I'm covering up where they're struggling in another area, right? Which is not true.
No.
Which is not true. As a matter of fact, what you realize is that this affirmation in this other area fuels their willingness to engage where they're struggling in a different area. So this is funny. I was on the golf course the other day and I'm playing with, a guy I've never played with. And I can see that he's, struggling with his swing and he's trying to figure it out. And he's hitting some errant shots and he hits this one drive off the tee box and it runs errant. But it was the best contact and the best swing he had made that day. I immediately said, bro, that was such a good swing. He goes, but it went into the bushes. And I said, hey, man, I get that. I appreciate it. The result wasn't ideal. I said, but I'm just letting you know that was the best swing you've made today. That contact was pure. And I said, hey, man, sometimes we just got to build off the small positive things that we can find. And I'm not kidding you. From that moment on, he started playing better. And I kept affirming those just little things that he was doing well.
Mm-hmm.
His attitude changed. He played better. He enjoyed himself more. And at the end of the round, he said, bro, what is it about you? I literally feel like I played better just because I was with you today. Now, I have heard that, Dawn, literally so many times on the golf course.
Yeah.
People are like, Eric, I play better when I'm with you. I just feel like you're so positive. Even if I'm competing against that other individual, I'm like, great shot. Hey, great chip. Even if it wasn't exactly what they were trying to achieve. And I'm not blowing smoke. I'm offering authentic, genuine affirmations, right? Or gratitude. Like, hey, man, thanks for grabbing me a water. Hey, I really appreciate you just giving me your extra towel. Hey, it's about the fact that we get to determine the quality of air that we're breathing in any context of our lives. We have that authority and power within us as human beings. And a lot of it is determined by, are we going to focus on the negative or are we going to focus on the positive? Are we going to operate from a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset? Are we going to operate from criticism and constant negative feedback, or are we going to operate from gratitude, appreciation, and affirmation?
Yeah. And
to just remember that oxygenated air is what we all need to perform better.
That's right. Well, and let me add this. I would never describe you as like Mr. Positivity. And that's not because you're not positive, but it's because you do have high standards and you offer very direct feedback to the like where some people might not feel comfortable with it, right? Some people might be put off by like, that was really direct. However, you are what makes that palatable is not the right word, but
palatable, yeah.
what makes that useful even as a team is it does hold our expectations high. And it does mean I am going to be called to account for what I said I was going to be, what I said I was going to do, and at what level I was going to perform. And if I didn't perform at that level, I'm going to get some feedback about that.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't impinge on my value as a team member and as a person, because there's also, you also temper that with the celebration, the appreciation, the affirmation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. That feels very encouraging to me because I wasn't always that way. So I've grown.
That's
Okay.
right.
So yeah, I know we've only got a few minutes left in
Yes.
this session. So let's jump into some practical application. So for everyone listening, here's a simple way to start practicing grateful leadership this week. Pick 3 people you lead or work alongside with. It could even be your spouse, your kids, whoever you want.
That's right.
And tell them specifically what you appreciate about them. Express in a form of gratitude, appreciation, or affirmation, something, not just a vague generalization, but something really specific that they bring to your life, to the team, to the organization, and that is an asset. Name the contribution and the impact of that contribution. That's really important. And then just as importantly, because remember, we've talked about how we can only give to others what we cultivate internally. We got to take some time to practice gratitude toward ourselves.
Yeah.
But we need to ask, what am I proud of what I'm doing? How have I been showing up that I think I need to affirm myself in? What's the strength that I'm bringing to this situation and that is an asset, right? And that's not arrogance. That's called self-awareness, right? Because you can't give what you don't cultivate internally.
Yes. And I'll add this, because as you said, and as we have said previously on episodes before, we are big fans of rhythms, of predictable patterns, of creating systems that allow us to make habits out of these good ideas,
That's
right? So how can you build a gratitude rhythm into your life and leadership? And it doesn't have to be complicated, right? It can be something as simple as starting a team meeting with a quick gratitude check-in, or ending your week by writing one thank you note, sending one voice message to somebody in your life that says, hey, thank you so much for what this X, Y, and Z that happened recently. It really meant a lot. That's how we make this sustainable.
I love that. If you're realizing, dear listener, we love you, by the way, that you want to build structure systems like the ones that we're talking about, then just own it, because guess what? We all need a framework for things like gratitude and feedback and ownership and composure. And that's why we've developed the Empower Leadership Operating System. It's that framework that turns inspiration into intentional transformation.
Yeah. And there's a few ways, guys, that you can start to implement this. If you're looking to go deeper, we love that. We honor that. And we're so grateful you're along for the journey. One quick way is that you can get Eric's new book, Upgrade Your Leadership. It's like a deep dive, a quick overview into several of these tools that will help you transform your life and leadership, quite frankly.
Yeah.
You can always go back and listen to the first episodes of this podcast. It's where we also talk through and lay out the tools in our leadership operating system. And also, if you're interested in looking for more, join our monthly Empower Masterclass. It's where we do a deeper dive for you, our podcast community, in some of these areas. We allow for Q&A. It allows us to actually connect with you in real time, and we absolutely love that. So you can find out the next one at mpwrcoaching.com/masterclass. They are monthly, as I said, so they're always happening.
Love it. Listen, guys, gratitude changes what you see, and what you see shapes how you lead. When you practice grateful leadership, you stop reacting to pressure and start responding from presence. And that's how trust grows. That's how culture is sustained. And that's how leaders like us stay grounded. As you head into the holidays, take a breath, notice what's good, who's with you, and what's worth protecting through gratitude, appreciation, and affirmation. That's the beginning of thankful leadership. We'll be back here next week as we kick off our next series. Super excited about this on underdeveloped leadership, the hidden epidemic. It's going to be powerful. Until next time.